Arcades were more than just public spaces to play games. They were social, technical, and cultural laboratories. From their coin-operated origins, they shaped youth culture and fostered friendships and rivalries through high scoreboards, reinforcing reflexes and skills. They were the pioneers of innovations in graphics, sound, and interactivity, as they experimented with cabinet designs and controls, refining genres like shoot-'em-ups, racing, and fighting games. Across regions, arcades reflected local social norms while influencing popular culture such as music and films, leaving a lasting impact on how we experience games both physically and socially. Arcade games are defined less by the game's content and more by the context and mechanics, where coin-operated machines placed in public spaces are designed to draw players into brief and engaging interactions on repeat. From the 70s to 90s, arcades evolved from mechanical amusements into fully designed electronic cabinets equipped with joysticks and buttons. These machines took timing and strategy to play while providing immediate sensory feedback with flashing lights and synthesized sounds that created fleeting and intense experiences. Although they're often overlooked in academic study, arcades cultivated a unique interaction between human body and machine, situating gameplay within public communal spaces, while also establishing a market-driven structure of challenge and reward. Within these spaces, arcades became hubs of youth culture, creating informal arenas for peer competition and social learning. High-score tables and multiplayer cabinets encouraged players to test their skills against friends and strangers alike, fostering communities that were both collaborative and competitive. Beyond pure gaming, arcades shaped behaviors and social hierarchies as skill and persistence determined local reputation and social standing within the community. The very design of these machines, with rapid response controls and escalating difficulty, amplified the emotional stakes, making each victory or defeat felt in the body as much as in the mind. In this sense, arcades were not merely entertainment, they were laboratories for social interaction where teenagers could establish identity and belonging in the social circle through tactile engagement. The rise of home gaming consoles in the early 70s and 80s brought these experiences into the private sphere, but arcades continued to innovate in ways consoles initially could not. Cabinet-based arcade games pushed the limits of graphics, sound, and interactivity at the time, offering immersive, multi-sensory experiences that were difficult to replicate on early hardware. Games like Space Invaders, Pac-Man, and Street Fighter introduced dynamic visuals, responsive controls, and complex game mechanics that shaped expectations for interactive media as a whole. The arcade became a foundational ground for both technical experimentation and engaging strategies, laying the groundwork for the design principles that continue to influence how games mediate challenge and reward in digital spaces today. Early arcade games emphasized reflexes and muscle memory, making early gaming as much a physical experience as a mental one. Success in gameplay relied on following strategic patterns and balancing timing with coordination, so gameplay evolved to become an embodied form, or problem solving, which is often overlooked in gaming studies, which tends to prioritize narrative or digital mechanics over the corporeal aspects of engagement. This emphasis on skill is reinforced by the arcade's pay-per-play model, where each quarter demanded careful attention and perseverance. Players were economically motivated to improve, creating a tension between immediate reward and long-term mastery that shaped social hierarchies, which is rarely analyzed in scholarship despite its centrality to the genre's culture. Sensory and tactile feedback, from button clicks and joystick navigation to flashing lights and speaker bursts, all came together to deepen engagement, forging a connection between player and machine that early home consoles could not replicate. These embodied cues made the arcade a space of heightened immersion and physical rhythm, revealing a layer of gameplay experience often ignored when games are studied purely as abstract systems or software. Arcades fostered community by turning competition into social currency. High scoreboards became more than records of achievement, with public markers of skill, status, and reputation within local networks of players. Friendships were forged over shared strategies and rivalries, creating a dynamic social ecosystem that blurred the line between gaming and peer recognition. Yet the social dimension of arcade culture remains underexplored in mainstream game scholarship. At the same time, these spaces were shaped by social dynamics. Gender and class influenced who felt welcome and who dominated the machines, from the predominantly male teenage crowds to the socio-economic hierarchies that determine access and frequency of gaming. These exclusions and imbalances offer insight into how leisure spaces can reproduce broader societal structures, which is often neglected in higher historical analysis of gaming. The cultural impact of arcades extended far beyond the machines themselves, permeating music and film. Movies like Tron or phenomena like Pac-Man Fever illustrate how arcade aesthetics and narratives infiltrated mainstream media, shaping popular imagination and influencing the emerging digital culture. While these intersections are visible in pop culture of the time, their significance in shaping social and emotional experiences of gaming remains surprisingly neglected. Arcades were experimental grounds for hardware innovation where things like cabinet designs, control layouts, and display technologies were tailored to specific games. This specialization not only enhanced gameplay but also pushed the boundaries of what interactive entertainment could be. Yet much of this iterative engineering is rarely acknowledged in histories of gaming. These hardware innovations laid the groundwork for early breakthroughs in sprite-based animation and synthesized soundtracks, creating immersive, audio-visual experiences that were inseparable from the physical arcade environment. The combination of tactile controls and synchronized sensory feedback established a distinct mode of interactivity that home consoles initially struggled to replicate, making arcades a uniquely compelling medium for players. Within this technical and sensory framework, game genres evolved rapidly. Shoot-'em-ups, beat-'em-ups, racing, and fighting games were refined through the pinnacle of arcade design, emphasizing precise timing and social competition. The iterative development in these public spaces shaped genre conventions that would migrate to home systems, yet critical scholarship often overlooks the role of arcades as crucibles where the foundational hallmarks of interactive gaming were codified. The quarter-per-play arcade model tightly defined gameplay design to monetization, shaping difficulty curves and reward systems around economic pressure. Games of the time were calibrated to be challenging but learnable, encouraging repeated investment while framing skill mastery as a way to resist the machine's extractive logic. This balance between player agency and capitalist incentive is central to arcade design, yet it is rarely examined critically even though it anticipates many contemporary debates around microtransactions and pay-to-play structures. From this competitive tension emerged significant social and technical contributions that ripple into both academia and industry. Arcades function as testing grounds for interaction between human and machine, informing early studies of feedback loops and learning through repetition while also influencing commercial game designs and interface standards. Despite this, arcades were often treated as a transitional curiosity rather than a foundational site, where interactive media and social behavior evolved alongside each other. These dynamics played out differently across regions, revealing how arcade culture was shaped by local values and social norms. In the US, arcades often emphasized competition and spectacle. In Japan, they developed into more structured, socially accepted spaces with refined cabinet design and genre specializations. And in parts of Europe, arcades blended with cafes or parlors, foregrounding leisure over skill mastery. These variations complicate any single narrative of the arcade yet global gaming history often blocks them out, overlooking how cultural context shaped not just how games were played, but how players related to them emotionally, socially, and physically. Arcades were more than a stepping stone to modern gaming. They were systems that tapped into social, technical, and cultural customs that shaped how gaming feels in the body and how competition builds community. By overlooking arcades as a historical genre of gaming, we risk backing games into a corner of software, forgetting the physical spaces, labor, and public rituals that once defined interactive media. Revisiting arcades is not about nostalgia, but about recognizing how many of our current relationships to games, in terms of difficulty, monetization, and identity, were first tested in those noisy, glowing rooms, and how much remains to be critically unpacked.